And as soon as we opened that front door, I will never, ever forget the smell in my life. Welcome to Flipping Filthy. We're your hosts. I'm Dustin Bruce.
And I'm Megan Willoughby.
We want to take you on this journey where we share with you some of the craziest flip stories that we've had in the past 15 years of flipping homes.
And we're going to take you through the home runs, the mistakes that we've made, and all of the crazy things that we've done while flipping houses.
So let's go. Hey everybody, welcome to Flipping Fanatics. We are your hosts. I'm Dustin Bruce.
And I'm Megan Willoughby.
And for the past 10 years, we have been flipping homes, lots of homes. And today, in our first episode of our podcast, we're really going to get into some of our maybe horror stories, you can call it. Yeah. So, I've got a great one for you today.
Okay, I'm excited to hear about it.
I'm excited to tell you about it because...
So this was one of your first flips that you did?
This is not one of my first flips. I would say it's a flip that we did within the first 3 years that I was flipping. Okay. And it actually wasn't a flip for myself, which I will get into, but it was for some clients of ours, because we help clients all the time help purchase their flip homes and give them advice on what to do before they resell them. So yeah, I've got a good one for you today. I'm excited to tell you about it, but yeah, it's crazy.
Okay, so how did this one come across your desk? What made this stand out to you as a great house?
Yeah, so this was, I believe, about 10 years ago. Okay, maybe 8 to 10 years ago, and it was at the county auction. So it wasn't a property that was like listed on a local MLS or anything like that. It was a county auction, and with the county auctions in our area around here, they're in person, right? You go to the county courthouse steps every Friday, which I think I was there every Friday for 7 straight years at one point, because we purchased a lot of those homes. But this was at the county auction, and we did all the evaluation on this property.
Did you get to walk around the outside of the house? Did you get to peek in the windows?
Yes.
Did you get to walk into the backyard?
Yes.
Okay.
So we had a lot of eval. Basically, the only thing we couldn't do was open the front door and go inside. Okay.
You couldn't give it the sniff test.
No. We looked through all the windows, and when we were looking through all the windows, we saw all of someone's belongings in there. Okay. So ultimately, at that point, I'm thinking, okay, this home is occupied. Okay, fine. The home is occupied. You need to know that going into it, especially, when you're flipping properties, right?
So there's no history on the house. So when it comes onto the auction, it doesn't say this house has missed its payments for a year. You don't know when it...
Yeah, generally not.
Okay.
No, you don't have much information because with a lot of the county auctions, you're preparing for that Friday coming up, right? And so most of the homes you're going to drive are like Wednesday or Thursday because you're waiting for the minimum bid to be placed on these homes. I mean, there's so many homes going to auction, and if you were to just drive every single one of them, it'd be crazy. I don't even know how you would do it. So we would drive the ones with the minimum bids that have been placed, and that they were reasonable minimum bids for us to actually take a look at and possibly purchase.
Okay, so when you're doing the bidding, you get the minimum bid. Yeah. You might have to pay more for the house. So, and so now you won the auction, obviously, because we're talking about the house. What was the minimum bid, and what did you end up paying for the house?
Yeah, you know what? I don't actually have those numbers, but thank you for bringing that up. But the minimum bid was placed. We did the drive and the evaluation. We saw that the homeowner had items inside still, so we're thinking occupied. We got to look through the garage door windows, and there's a vehicle inside the garage. So we're like, okay, it's occupied. So we got to give him time to get out, maybe offer him cash for keys.
No lights on in the house?
Something like that. There was no lights on in the house. Okay. And looking back on it, the one thing maybe I should have checked at the time that I wasn't thinking about at the time was I maybe should have checked to see if the electrical meter was running, because it was not.
Yeah.
And if I could have seen that. Did you check the water
to see there might be water running?
No, I didn't check the water either, but looking back on it, I probably should have. Okay. I don't know if it would have changed anything, though, to be honest with you. It looked like an occupied house, and we're going to buy it at the auction, but we just have to take that into consideration with our spreadsheet, right?
Right. So numbers The math is math. If
Numbers
the math
look
works,
good.
then you're all over it.
There was probably 7 different parties that qualified for this particular auction on this home. Okay, so 7 parties were going to bid on this home. So the bidding took place.
Yeah.
Right? The bidding takes place and it gets down to 2 of us, and we ended up winning the bid, right? We had the highest bid. We paid the most for the house. You feel like a champ, right? So we got the property and we're really excited. And one of the first things we do is we call our clients. So let's talk about our clients.
Okay.
So we had 2 clients and they were partnering up. Okay. This was not their first flip either, but they were both police officers. And that's going to play into my story here in a bit, but they're both police officers. So they're very by the book, right? And very analytical and very critical of every single property that we were to find them, right? So we gave them all the details and the evaluation and the spreadsheet and everything on this property, and we knew where our highest bid was going to be. But now it was time to just, let's do it. Let's take it there. And we got it. Right? So we informed the clients. We're like, hey guys, we're super excited about this purchase. Congratulations, you got the home. Susie, my aunt Susie and I, we were real estate partners at the time, and we were doing all these flip properties. So we decided right after the auction, we're going to go over to the home and try to, see if we can take possession.
So it's just you and Susie, not the client. So they didn't bring their battering ram to get in the front door. Wouldn't that have been really awesome to see?
They were still at work and they were on shift and they were working. But Susie and I decided, hey, we wanted to go check this out, right? Oh my gosh. So we go to the property, right? We go to the property and again, we check the doors, even though they're locked. We knocking on the door just to make sure that there's maybe not somebody inside. No one answers the door and we're knocking, we're walking around, and all of a sudden one of the neighbors comes out. One of the neighbors from next door comes out and they're like, hey, what's going on? And we inform them, hey, we just purchased this property at auction and we just are trying to establish some communication with the owner. And they're like, well, that's going to be pretty tough. Oh, why's that? Well, the owner committed suicide in the master bathroom about 1.5 years ago. And we're like, what? And this is the first time we've heard about this, obviously, right?
So you didn't talk to any of the neighbors before?
No.
Why would you do that?
I know, right? if the neighbors are out there, you can talk to them, but most of the time, with all the properties that we're driving and evaluating, we're not knocking on all the neighbors.
You don't have the time for it.
Yeah, you don't. You try to do the best you can and provide the information. So the neighbor informs us that this guy had committed suicide in the bathroom, master bathroom, about 1.5 years ago.
So at this point, now you have a name for the house. What do you call this house? Because everybody has a name for their houses, right?
We actually named this house 2 things. Suicide House, and that was easy, but not very original. So we named it Halloween Horror. And the reason why we named it Halloween Horror is because in talking with the neighbor, they had informed us that the owner of this home, he got really heavy into drug use. And so heavy, in fact, that his family was trying to help him out. They were trying to get him into rehab. They were trying to help him out. And he pretty much disowned his family. He pretty much, told him to go take a hike. So
he thought that they were ruining his life, not the other way around.
Exactly. He thought that the family was going to ruin his life and not the drugs that he was, putting into his system and making him crazy. But so he estranged away from his family to the point where his family no longer got in touch with him or no longer talked to him. And it wasn't a big deal for his family, supposedly, to not hear from him because they knew that, he wasn't talking to him anymore. Okay. So it was one Halloween night, the neighbors, late at night, they heard a major gunshot. Right. And people heard this, but some of the neighbors didn't know if it was a firework.
Right.
Or a gunshot, or
a car backfiring,
what it was, because there was only one shot.
Yeah, so there wasn't a second shot.
So there wasn't a second shot or nothing to follow it up or anybody to look out their window and see what's going on.
Right.
Because it was just, and it happened. So what happened is that after he had taken his own life, the bank never got another payment, obviously.
Yeah. Right.
So the bank never got another payment on the property. And eventually the property goes into foreclosure process and there was no communication. So the bank finally sent a representative out there to take possession of the property.
And how long ago, how much time had gone by from Halloween to when the representative? A year? So October to October.
1
year.
The
bank representative finally went to the house.
1 year. He was found 1 year later. The bank representative goes to the house, drills out the locks, gets into the property, sees that there's stuff all over the property, but obviously smells something. Okay. So he goes upstairs. He checks all over, but eventually makes his way upstairs into the, let's call it, primary bedroom, and goes into the bathroom and sees that this guy has taken his life. There's dead body in the bathroom. So the bank representative runs out of the house, from what I hear.
Oh, I would too.
Informs the bank. The first thing that happens is the city actually sent out a hazmat crew. Okay. But they left.
The hazmat. Okay. So the hazmat crew shows up.
And they leave.
They show up and then they leave. There's nothing that they do.
Because the hazmat crew does not take the body away.
That's not their job?
That's not their job, the coroner. So they had to, so then the coroner comes and the medical and the ambulance and all this stuff, they come and they take the body and they leave. Okay. And that's all they did.
So they took the main part of his body.
Yes.
But they left the small parts of his body.
Yes. And here's what happened.
That's not funny. I shouldn't laugh.
It's not funny, but it is kind of crazy on how these processes work sometimes when you've never been involved with them. You don't know, right? So they come and they take the body away, but there's no hazmat that's called back to come back in.
So it should have been the other way around. They should have taken the body away and then hazmat should have shown up to clean.
That's
correct.
They
just didn't.
But they didn't do that.
They got their days mixed up.
They didn't do that. Okay. So they take the body away. And now they just winterized the property, put on new locks, and the property goes through auction, the foreclosure process through auction, and we're the ones that purchase it.
So now it's another 6 months later.
Yes.
About.
Exactly. So we're standing outside of the home finally. We just got all this information from the neighbor.
Right.
And we let the neighbor know who we are, what we're doing, and that we're going to do our best to, rejuvenate this property and bring it back to, happier days.
And now in your mind, are you thinking, okay, now that we know that somebody committed suicide in the house, we definitely can't sell it for as much as we thought we would be able to sell it for?
Not in my mind. Didn't even cross my mind, because no longer in our state do we ever have to disclose the fact that murder or suicide or anything happened in a property. You used to have to do that back when I started my career in early 2000 or whatever. Our seller disclosure statement did have questions on there about that, but no longer. So it did not matter. When we get these properties, they look a certain way. By the time we put them back on the market, they look like a diamond.
Right, but what if one of the buyers happens to run across the neighbor who was watering his lawn at the time, and he's got a nice little story to tell.
Exactly, right? So here's what the neighbor tells us. They're like, we are so appreciative that you guys are going to do this to the property. We're not going to say anything. Thing. Right? Okay. So disclosure, first of all, the neighbor says they're not going to say anything. But we've determined that no one's going to be answering this door, our letters, our calls, or nothing. So we can take possession of this house.
And start work tomorrow.
Exactly. Okay. Right? So we decided, in the area that we were in, I have a really good buddy. And I'm going to call him Jesse. Okay. We have a really good buddy. And I asked Jesse to bring over his drill with a bit, and we're going to drill out this lock. And here's what happened. And he's like all down for it. He's like, oh, I'm coming right over. He was there within 10 minutes. And we drilled out the lock of the front door so we can get into the property. And then we got access to the property. And as soon as we opened that front door, I will never, ever forget the smell in my life.
So is one of those different than walking next to a dead opossum that's on the side of the road?
Absolutely. I've never smelled anything like this before in my life. So if I ever smell it again, I'm going to know. Yeah. Because that's stuck with me. Just recognizing what that was. Yeah. Okay. But again, at this time, we know that they had taken a dead body out of the house, and that is it.
So you're walking in the front door.
Yeah.
Do you actually go to the bathroom to start just to see it? Or do you say, we're going to walk to the rest of the house and just make sure that
yeah, I mean,
you have to prolong the inevitable, or were you just going to dive right in?
Well, now we have a third party with us, right? It's not just me and Aunt Susie. It's Jessie is there too. So we go up to the primary bedroom.
Who's going first up the stairs?
Okay, we all go into the bedroom.
So you're not first up the stairs, or who's up first up the stairs?
It might be Jessie. But here's where the story gets even better. Okay. We're all in the bedroom and we're all like, I don't want to go in there because it's in the bathroom. It happened in the master bathroom.
Now, was it in the tub or on the toilet or in the sink?
Okay. So in hindsight, I can tell you at the time I didn't know. It was on the toilet. It was a shotgun.
Okay.
And he was just sitting down and whatever, right? So we're standing in the bedroom though. And we know that it's right here in the bathroom, right? And so we creak the door open a little bit, and I'm talking like 4 or 5 inches. And in 4 or 5 inches of that door being open, you can see hundreds of thousands of dead flies all over the floor, and the countertop, the bathroom. And it was just like, oh my God.
Because they ran out of food.
Yeah, let's call it that. And they're just, I've never seen so many dead flies, but they're all just right there on the floor. They're all just dead and just huge, big flies, and it was gross. But
okay,
now,
so wait, I have a question.
Okay.
When does the smell start getting worse and worse and worse? Like you walk in the front door and it smells, and then you're going up the stairs, and is it because it's upstairs, a little stagnant air? Maybe it's warm out, right? Because it's the summertime by now.
As soon as you walked through that front door, that smell hits you, and it doesn't leave you. In fact, that smell will stay on your clothes. It'll stay on anything you're wearing if you're going to be in the property for a certain amount of time, and we certainly were. So it was horrible. So like we're going in. Sorry, I just got reminded. So we're going in and we're covering our noses and doing this and that. But eventually, we've got to see the bathroom, right? But we decided, between the 3 of us that were standing there, that we would do paper, rock, scissors. An odd person out had to go look at the bathroom first. Okay. And I was thinking this because honestly, like if you go in and you see something like this, it's in your brain. Yeah. You're going to see this forever. You're going to remember it. You're going to see it. You're visually going to know what that looked like at that time. And I was thinking to myself, like, God, I just really don't need that in my brain. Like, I really don't have a desire to see this or that.
I think it would look like dead slugs or something like that.
Well, I don't know. But anyway, we did paper, rock, scissors, right? And Aunt Susie lost.
Poor Aunt Susie.
So she was the one that was going to have to go do the first inspection. But I will say Jessie was kind of excited about being there. So Jessie and Susie went at the same time. And they open the door and they look at it, and obviously the body is gone.
Yeah.
But there is brain matter on the ceiling, on the walls. There is blood smears all over the place. It's horrible, and they're telling me about this. And that's when I decided I'm not going to go look at this.
Okay.
Because I didn't want it in my head. I didn't want to picture this and think about this all the time and stuff like that. I didn't need that.
Well, it wouldn't look like it would be at a movie where it had just happened. The blood would have been dried and dark and not red and gooey.
Right. But these people come and they pick up the body. Can't you just pick up the rest of the brain or something? There's chunks of it on the ground, on the wall, on the ceiling. It's horrible. Just absolutely horrible. So
now, did you think when you walked in that bathroom that you could salvage anything? Like, that toilet's in good shape. You know what? That bathtub is something that we could keep. The vinyl is perfect. We're just going to clean it up.
No.
Just save that part of the house.
Okay, so I absolutely did not think about, is there anything salvageable in this bathroom? Because honestly, I never looked at the bathroom, right?
Yeah.
I didn't want to have that visual in my head. But Susie and Jessie went in there. They checked it all out. It was as bad as it looked. There was flies everywhere. It was horrible. Okay, it was horrible. So this kind of leads me back to who our clients were.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Two
right.
police officers.
Right.
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 So 2 police officers. Now, these guys see this stuff a lot. Unfortunately, they see this stuff a lot. And we had to make a little phone call to them and kind of explain to them what had happened and what's going on. And the cool thing about it is, like, most people would be a little apprehensive in terms of telling their clients what they just walked into. But our clients, they weren't that bad about it because they had seen this stuff a lot of times before. So they're like, okay, yeah, we'll come over and check it out. And the very first thing that they did was actually call hazmat.
Okay.
Okay. So they called hazmat, and the hazmat came in, cleaned it up, and at least got everything out of there. So it just was like a clean palette of like, what do we do now?
Right.
Okay. They eventually, basically tore out the entire bathroom.
Drywall, I would have done that, right?
They took out all the drywall, the vanity, the toilets, everything, the flooring, the subfloor. Yeah. They took that out too. Okay. So that they had a new subfloor laid, and then obviously the new drywall, a new vanity, new lighting, new toilet.
Right.
Everything in there was new. One little side note is, as you know, from a lot of these properties, when you first get possession and there's a lot of stuff left in there, sometimes you kind of take a look at it and see if there's anything kind of cool in there and stuff. Well, one of the things I found cool was this guy had all the old Beatles records.
Oh, wow.
All like original Beatles, and there was like Led Zeppelin, and there was all these older, really historic bands, but like their first vinyls that had come out. And it was like, wow, this is really cool.
So do you have all of that at your house right now?
Do, actually.
Oh, the client. Oh, that would be,
They did keep it. Yeah. But it's a different process, when you have to go through like all this stuff. And this guy, most of the time when you buy an auction property, as you know, there's no vehicle really that's left there unless it's in a pile of vehicles outside. Right. But this was in a garage, and it was a Toyota truck. It was kind of nice.
So did they like keep the truck too, or do they sell it
to the state?
Oh, they did. Oh, because there might be
to the state and the Department
of air
or
something
and all that. And so they handled it. And the cool thing is that they were able to go into this house, and they stripped a lot out of it because they really wanted to have the intention of whoever bought this home, like, would know nothing about this. Like, they could start their own happy memories in this home, because this was a nice home. It was a tri-level home, and it had some good, square footage in it. And it was a pretty nice home. Yeah. And so they spent about $42,000 in total rehab on this particular property.
Now this is price 8 to 10 years ago.
Yes.
It'd be triple that right now.
It'd be about 90,000 or something.
But it'd be a lot more.
Yeah. So at the time it was about $42,000, and the home looked amazing. It looked great. And all while they're fixing up the home, they're talking to the same neighbors. Right? Yeah. And the neighbors are so appreciative. The neighbors couldn't have been happier that 2 police officers were the ones that actually bought this home and are rehabbing it up and going to put it back.
They're a public servant, but they're also a neighborhood servant, but because they're cleaning up the house.
Absolutely. Yeah. So,
okay, I want to hear.
And they're like, yeah, this place is amazing. We actually brought the neighbors into the home before we listed it. Like, hey, check it out. Look what we did. And they're just like, oh my God, this is amazing. It looks so good, and all this. And so we're like really excited.
Okay, I have a question.
We got the neighbors on board.
So if the subfloor was removed, would it have made sense to maybe relocate the toilet location? So instead of it being on the right-hand side of the vanity, now it's on the left-hand side of the vanity to kind of make it different enough?
Well, that is a good question, and the answer is no.
Okay.
And the reason why is because with this bathroom, the way it was set up, if you were to change the toilet to the other side of the vanity, then the toilet would be in front of the door.
Oh,
and that you never want to open a door right into the view of a toilet.
Right.
That's just, you don't want it. You want it to be off the side or something like that. So when you open the door, you're looking at the vanity in the mirror that's in front of you. And then the toilet, was on the right-hand side. It just made sense to keep the footprint the way it was and just redo everything.
Spruce it up a little bit more.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. So.
Okay,
neighbors are good.
Okay, neighbors are good. Great.
They don't want anybody knowing about this because this was a bad thing that happened to the neighborhood and they didn't like it, and they're just really excited for new neighbors. Okay. So we put the home on the market finally. Okay. The home is ready. We put it on the market, and within 3-4 days, even at that time, we've got buyers that absolutely love this place. Okay. We go into contract and we're ready to, everything's good. We go through inspection. We get all the way to closing and everybody is happy. And it's just like, okay, we did it. We did it. Right. And it closed and everything was great.
Okay. Everything
was great.
Until they moved in.
No.
Oh.
Well, sort of. Let me put it this way. It just so happens that 2 weeks after closing, my wife is on jury duty. Okay. And it just so happens that on the same jury that my wife got selected for is one of the buyers of this home, the wife.
So they're talking. No, they're friends. Wait, they go to lunch together.
No, well, they did, but they did get to talking because she had mentioned to my wife, oh, we just bought a new home in Monroe. We just moved in and this and that. She's like, oh yeah, my husband sells real estate. And, and he was, he works in Monroe sometimes too. So they get to talking and they don't know that my wife and I were the agents or anybody involved in the transaction yet. But the lady, the buyer, mentions to my wife that someone had killed themselves in their home. And my wife's like, oh no. Like, what? Like, where do you live? And they got to talking and she's like, oh my God, it's the same house. This is the buyer. And so what happened? Guess what happened?
What happened?
On the day that they are moving into the home, the neighbor comes right over and tells them about the person who killed himself in the house.
And then 2 weeks later, your wife and the buyer were on jury duty.
Yeah.
But the buyer had already known that somebody committed suicide in the house. So this wasn't a surprise for her to find out at jury duty.
Not at jury duty.
Okay.
At jury duty, they found out that basically my wife was married to one of the guys who bought the property at auction and all that, and they figured it out and talked about it.
Was she upset?
So the buyer wasn't upset.
Okay.
They what they said, which I thought was very good, is that people die in houses all the time. Now, obviously, a way that you die in a home, whether you die in bed during sleep, is a lot different than
peaceful or unpeaceful.
Right. So, but they had a good mentality about it. People die in houses all the time, and we know that they totally redid the entire property. So, it's got to be okay. So that was their mindset.
Do you know if the buyer knew that it happened in the bathroom?
Well, yes, we do know that because the neighbor just had to, let them know that basically they knew all about this house. And here's what happened. And this is after the neighbor telling us 3 or 4 times during this whole process that they're never going to tell anybody. But the neighbor literally went over there the day they're moving in and had a conversation with them. And during the conversation came up the fact that somebody killed yourself in your bathroom.
Well, he didn't want to get in the way of the sale. But after the sale's done, it doesn't really matter, right? That's what his mindset was. I don't want to deter anybody from buying the house. But once they buy the house, because he's saving the day. They always do.
How is he saving the day by giving somebody that information?
He's saving the day.
Saving the day in his mind.
In his mind.
Yeah. So that's what happened. But it was a successful transaction.
Yep.
Successful closing.
Okay, how much did they make?
And the buyers were good. Our sellers on this one, our partners on this one, I believe it was $39,000 was their gross profit after everything.
And that's good for 8 to 10 years ago.
Yeah, 8 to 10 years ago, we were really, looking to try to hit like 30,000 flip. If you got into 50,000, you were a home run.
Wow.
At that time. I mean, we just had so many people at the auction, and it was quite a period in time that it was way different than it is right now today.
Okay, so have you followed this house since it sold the first time? Have you seen it change hands a few times? Like, does it pop up on one of your searches? Oh, okay, once. The
people who originally bought it from my sellers, they actually sold it, and now there's the second owner after we've done everything. So, but they were totally fine with it. They knew everything was completely redone in the house. We had no disclosures that we absolutely had to do to try, to tell people about what had happened to this house. I think if they could have, researched on their own, maybe they would have found something out there, but they didn't, and everything was fine, and it was a great house. And from time to time, when I'm in the area, I always drive by this house and kind of look and see how it looks. And I will say this, because you can't say it for that many properties, but on this particular property, every single time I've driven by this house, it looks great.
Really?
Like, they're totally keeping up with it. The property looks great. This all new fence looks great. The deck, I mean, they've done a great job. Who's ever been continuing to live there has done a great job in keeping the property up. So Halloween horror is what happened with this particular property. But, with anything that has a casualty that starts, there's obviously a way that you can make it great at the end and keep the property moving on.
Yeah. So that reminds me, I actually had a tri-level that I flipped, and I have a very similar story about that house. So we'll have to talk about that next time, but
let's talk about that.
It's very, very, very interesting and probably just as disgusting.
So the moral of my story is like, don't play paper, rock, scissors with me because I'm really good. Thanks everybody for checking out the podcast and listening to our story today. We've got many more stories that are coming up. This was a lot of fun to do. And if you have any questions, reach out to us and let us know. It's for myself, Dustin Bruce, and
Megan Willoughby.
We're happy to have you at Flipping Fanatics.
Bye.